Welcome back to AGS Stories. Today's story is a gut-wrenching tale of a father who lost his daughter. Not because of tragedy, but because of the choices he made years ago. Betrayal, regret, and a desperate attempt at redemption. This one is packed with emotion, and trust me, you'll have a lot to say about it. Let's get into it. My name is Jonathan Carter, and I'm 55 years old. I know I made mistakes, big ones. The kind you can't just apologize for and expect everything to be okay. Years ago, I was married to my first wife, Emily. We had a daughter together, Rachel, who was my entire world. But along the way, I messed up. I cheated. It wasn't something that happened overnight. My marriage with Emily had been struggling for years. We fought constantly, barely spoke unless it was about Rachel, and honestly, I felt like a stranger in my own home. That's when Lisa came into my life. She was exciting, new. She made me feel alive again. Before I knew it, I had destroyed my family. Emily and I divorced, and I moved in with Lisa almost immediately. Rachel was only 10 years old at the time. At first, she still wanted to see me, still called me Dad with the same warmth she always had. But things changed. Lisa had 2 kids from a previous marriage, a boy and a girl, and she expected me to be just as much their father as I was to Rachel. I tried to balance it all, but deep down I know I failed. Rachel watched as I built a new life, a new family, while she and her mother struggled to adjust. The phone calls became less frequent. The visits are shorter. By the time she was 16, she barely spoke to me. And by 18, she was gone. Now, years later, Rachel is 29 years old and getting married. When I found out, I saw it as my second chance. I offered to pay for a large part of the wedding, hoping, maybe foolishly, that would show her how much I still cared. For the first time in years, it felt like I was making progress. But then something happened, something that made me realize that some wounds don't heal, no matter how much you try to fix them. I thought paying for a large part of Rachel's wedding would help rebuild our relationship. I knew money wouldn't undo the past, but I hoped it would show her that I still cared, that I wanted to be part of her life. For the first time in years, I felt like I was making progress. Then, the first blow came. I had always imagined walking Rachel down the aisle. It was something I thought was a given, something that was still mine despite everything that had happened. But when I brought it up, she hesitated. That hesitation was like a punch to the gut. "Dad," she said, her voice careful, as if she were trying not to hurt me. "I love you, but I want Mark to walk me down the aisle." Mark, her stepfather, the man who had been there since she was 12, the man who raised her while I was busy playing house with Lisa and her kids. I stood there trying to keep my face neutral, but my heart was hammering. "Rachel, I understand he's been there for you, but I'm still your father. Can't we both walk you down?" She sighed. "I don't think that would be fair to Mark. He's the one who's been there through everything. I need you to respect this, Dad. Respect." I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell her that I was trying to make things right, that I had never stopped loving her. But what could I say? The truth was, I hadn't been the father she needed. So I nodded. "Okay, I respect your decision." It hurt like hell, but I swallowed it. I told myself I would still be there, still part of the wedding. I would celebrate her happiness and show her I wasn't the selfish man she remembered. But then came the flower girl situation. And that was when everything spiraled out of control. Rachel and her fiancé, Daniel, had already decided on a flower girl, Daniel's 5-year-old niece, Lily. She was an adorable kid, and apparently, she and Rachel were close. When I heard about it, I didn't think much of it, until Lisa found out. At dinner one night, Lisa casually asked, "So, did Rachel ask Emma to be the flower girl yet?" I frowned. "Emma." She gave me a look as if I should have known. "My daughter, Jonathan. Your stepdaughter. She's 6, just the right age for a flower girl." I should have seen where this was going. I should have known Lisa would expect Rachel to include Emma. But I was too slow to catch on. "Lisa, I don't think that's up to me," I said carefully. "Rachel and Daniel already chose their flower girl. It's his niece." Lisa scoffed. "That's ridiculous. We've done so much for Rachel. This is the least she could do for Emma." I sighed. "Rachel barely knows Emma. Whose fault is that?" Lisa shot back, her voice sharper now. "You've been trying to fix things with Rachel, and this is a perfect opportunity." A simple compromise. Both girls can be flower girls. What's the harm in that? I don't want to fight about this. The last thing I wanted was to put Rachel in a position where she had to prove something to Lisa. But Lisa wasn't going to let it go. Talk to her, Lisa insisted. She owes you this, Jonathan. I didn't like the way she said that. As if Rachel owed me anything. As if money was a transaction that could buy back the years I had lost with my daughter. Still, I tried. I called Rachel the next evening, keeping my tone light. Hey, sweetheart, I was wondering, have you thought about having 2 flower girls? Emma would love to be part of the wedding. There was silence on the other end. Then Rachel exhaled, frustration in her voice. Dad, no. We've already made our decision. I barely even know Emma. I tried to ease the tension. I just thought, maybe as a gesture, to bring everyone together. Rachel's voice hardened. I don't need to bring everyone together. This is my wedding, not yours, not Lisa's. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, she continued. And honestly, Dad, the fact that you're even asking me this makes me feel like you're just trying to buy your way into my life instead of actually being in it. That stung, but before I could respond, she added, please tell Lisa to back off. I am not changing my decision. She hung up. That night, I barely slept. I could already tell Lisa wouldn't take this well. And I was right. When I told her what Rachel said, she exploded. She's selfish. Lisa shouted. She has no respect for you, Jonathan. After everything we've done for her, after all the money you put into this wedding, she can't do this one thing? I rubbed my temples. It's her decision, Lisa. It's not about you. Lisa crossed her arms, furious. Oh, so I'm nobody now? Our daughter is nobody? Is Rachel just going to pretend we don't exist? I didn't know what to say. I hated being in the middle of this. But then Lisa did something that made everything worse. She texted Rachel a long, nasty message about how disrespectful she was being to me, about how ungrateful she was, how she was hurting her father. Rachel sent me a screenshot. Tell your wife to stop harassing me, or she's uninvited. I tried to talk to Lisa, but she wasn't backing down. I'm just standing up for you, Jonathan. You deserve better. But was that really true? Did I deserve anything at all? I feel torn. On one side, I want to be there for Rachel. I don't want to lose what little relationship we have left. But on the other, Lisa is my wife. I've built a life with her and our family. She thinks I should stand up for myself, that I should demand more from Rachel. But demanding things won't fix the past. And I can't shake the feeling that pushing this issue will only drive Rachel further away. So, I'm asking you, the community, what do I do? Am I wrong for trying to make a compromise? Should I push Rachel to include Emma? Or should I back off completely? Or maybe I've already lost her. Maybe I've been fighting a battle I've already lost. I just don't know anymore. When Jonathan posted his story online, he wasn't prepared for the sheer volume of responses. Within hours, the comment section exploded with mixed reactions. Some people were brutally honest, while others tried to offer a more understanding perspective. Either way, the message was clear, his actions had consequences, and not everyone was going to be on his side. The top comment, with thousands of upvotes, read, At Truth Hurts 87, Jonathan, let me be blunt. You abandoned your daughter years ago. You don't get to dictate how she runs her wedding now. Walking her down the aisle? Gone. Flower girl decision? Not yours to make. You weren't there for her when she needed you the most. And now you expect her to make room for your new family? That's not how this works. This comment sparked a heated discussion, with many agreeing that Jonathan had overstepped. Others, however, took a more nuanced view of the situation. At second chances matter. I get that you made mistakes, Jonathan. And honestly, I respect that you're trying to mend things. But your wife Lisa is making everything worse. She's trying to force your daughter to accept her family, and that's not fair to Rachel. If you really want to fix things, step back and let Rachel set the boundaries. If you keep letting Lisa push, you're going to lose her for good. A few commenters sympathized with Jonathan, recognizing the difficulty of balancing two families. But even those who saw his side believed he needed to handle things differently. At Not Buying It 92, dude, let's be real here. You can't buy your daughter's forgiveness. Paying for her wedding doesn't mean she has to cater to you. If you truly want a relationship with her, show her that you respect her choices. Right now, it looks like you're using money as leverage, even if that's not your intention. Many people pointed out that Rachel wasn't being unreasonable. She had been clear about her boundaries. She wanted her stepfather to walk her down the aisle, and she had chosen her flower girl. The real issue, they argued, wasn't Rachel's decision, but Lisa's reaction to it. If boundaries are healthy, Lisa is the real problem here. She's the one pushing, she's the one sending nasty messages, and now you're caught in the middle. But here's the thing, you don't have to be in the middle. You can make it clear to Lisa that this isn't her battle to fight. But if you side with her over Rachel, then yeah, you deserve whatever comes next. Several users pointed out the biggest red flag in the story, Lisa's reaction. Instead of accepting Rachel's decision, she escalated things by sending aggressive messages. That, more than anything, seemed to be the breaking point. At Reality Check 420, it's not about the flower girl, dude. It never was. It's about control. Your wife thinks she can force Rachel to bend, and when Rachel refuses, she throws a tantrum. What happens if you keep pushing? Rachel cuts you off for good. Is that really worth it over a flower girl? There were also comments from people who had been in Rachel's position before. Children who had been abandoned by a parent, only for that parent to show up years later expecting to be welcomed back with open arms. Their words were some of the most cutting. At Abandoned Daughter, my dad did the same thing to me. Left when I was young, started a new family, and then years later acted like we could just go back to being close. Newsflash, that's not how it works. Your daughter is protecting herself. If you want a real relationship with her, stop letting Lisa make demands and start actually listening to Rachel. Jonathan spent hours reading through the comments, his emotions swirling. He hadn't expected people to be so harsh, but deep down, he knew they weren't wrong. He had made choices that had hurt his daughter, and now he was facing the consequences. The biggest question was, what was he going to do next? Jonathan sat at the kitchen table, staring at the dim glow of his phone screen. It had been 2 days since he shared his story online, and the flood of responses hadn't stopped. Thousands of people, strangers from all over, had given their opinions, some blunt, some sympathetic, but all pointing toward the same brutal truth. He had messed up. His fingers hovered over Rachel's number. He knew he had to make things right, to let her know he wasn't trying to control her wedding. Maybe if he explained himself better, she would understand. Maybe if he told her that Lisa was just being protective, overzealous, but protective, she wouldn't be so angry. But before he could call, Lisa walked into the room, arms crossed, a storm brewing in her expression. "You're not actually thinking of backing down, are you?" she snapped. Jonathan exhaled, rubbing his temples. "Lisa, this is getting out of hand. Rachel's wedding isn't about us. She's made her decisions, and I need to respect that." Lisa let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Respect? Respect? She's disrespecting you. You paid for this wedding. You're her father. And now she's treating you like some distant relative instead of the man who raised her." Jonathan tensed. "Lisa, I didn't raise her. Not really. That's the truth." The room went silent. Lisa's eyes narrowed. "So what? You're just going to let her treat you like garbage? After everything we've done for her?" Jonathan sighed. "Lisa, we didn't do anything for her. I abandoned her. I chose a different family. That's not something you just come back from with a checkbook." Lisa scoffed. "Oh, come on, Jonathan. You try to be there for her. She's the one who cut you off. Because I deserved it." Jonathan snapped, his voice louder than he intended. Lisa took a step back, stunned. Jonathan rarely raised his voice, but right now, he felt like he was suffocating. He needed to talk to Rachel. Jonathan called Rachel that evening. She picked up after a few rings, her voice wary. "Dad, Rachel, I wanted to say I'm sorry." There was a long pause. "For what? Exactly?" "For pushing this. For making you feel like I was trying to buy my way back into your life." He swallowed hard. "I just wanted to be part of your wedding. I wanted to make up for everything I missed." Rachel let out a sigh. "Dad, I get that. I really do. But you need to understand something. I don't owe you that. You made your choices years ago, and I've spent my whole life trying to heal from that. Now, you and Lisa are trying to force me into including her daughter, someone I barely know, just to make her feel better. This isn't about you or Lisa or Emma. It's about me, and what I want on my wedding day. Jonathan closed his eyes. I know, and I'm sorry, but Lisa, she's upset. She thinks. Rachel cut him off. I don't care what Lisa thinks. She's not my mother. She never was. And honestly, Dad, I'm tired of this. If this keeps going, I'll have to uninvite you. Jonathan's chest tightened. He had expected anger, maybe even more distance, but uninviting him? That hadn't even been a thought in his mind. Rachel, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Please don't do that. Then tell Lisa to back off. Tell her to stop texting me, to stop trying to guilt me. Tell her this isn't about her. Jonathan hesitated. He knew Lisa wouldn't take that well. She would see it as him choosing Rachel over her, over their family. And maybe, in a way, she would be right. Rachel sighed. Dad, if you can't do that, then maybe it's better if you don't come at all. Before he could respond, she ended the call. Jonathan sat in the dimly lit living room, his thoughts racing. The house was quiet, the weight of the conversation sitting heavy on his chest. He needed to find a way to fix this. Then Lisa walked in, her phone clutched in her hand, her face twisted with rage. She's really doing this? She hissed. Jonathan frowned. What are you talking about? Lisa shoved her phone at him. It was a message from Rachel. Lisa, I've asked you repeatedly to stop. Since you won't, I want you to know that I've sent my dad back every penny he contributed to the wedding. This way, neither of you can hold it over my head anymore. I'm done. Jonathan's stomach dropped. Lisa let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Unbelievable. After everything we've done, she pulls this? Jonathan barely heard her. His mind was reeling. Rachel had sent all the money back? He felt like the ground beneath him had just disappeared. He had thought that, no matter what happened, he would still be there on her wedding day, that she would at least want him there. But she had cut him out completely. I lost her, he murmured. Lisa crossed her arms. You didn't lose her. She's throwing a tantrum, Jonathan. She'll come crawling back when she realizes what a mistake she's making. Jonathan shook his head. No, she won't, because this wasn't just about the wedding. This wasn't about the money, or about Emma being the flower girl, or about Lisa sending messages. This was about everything. Years of neglect. Years of choosing someone else over his daughter. Rachel had finally had enough. And maybe she was right. Jonathan sat in the living room long after Lisa had gone to bed, staring at the check Rachel had sent back. He should have felt angry. He should have called her, demanded to be part of her life. But he didn't, because for the first time he truly understood. Rachel had moved on. She wasn't that little girl waiting for her dad to come home anymore. She wasn't looking for his approval, or his love, or his money. She was done, and maybe, just maybe, Jonathan deserved it. Wow, this story took a turn, but honestly, are we really surprised? Jonathan ignored all the warning signs. He kept pushing, kept letting Lisa control the situation, and now he's out of his daughter's wedding completely. The question is, does he actually realize why this happened? Or is he just feeling sorry for himself? The comment section continued to flood with reactions, and they weren't holding back. Some people had zero sympathy for Jonathan, while others believed he might still have a chance to fix things, if he played his cards right. At Cold Reality 77, you picked Lisa over Rachel for years, Jonathan. And now you're acting shocked that Rachel doesn't want you in her life? You didn't just lose a spot in her wedding. You lost her. Period. This isn't about a flower girl or money. It's about the years you weren't there. And you're still prioritizing your wife's tantrum over your daughter's feelings. This comment had thousands of upvotes, with replies agreeing that Jonathan's biggest mistake wasn't just pushing for the flower girl. It was failing to stand up for Rachel when Lisa started overstepping. At wakeupcall_23, your daughter wasn't being unreasonable, Jonathan. Your wife was. The second Lisa started attacking Rachel, you should have shut it down. Instead, you let her keep pushing. And now you're sitting there stunned that Rachel wants nothing to do with you? Give me a break. But not everyone thought the situation was beyond repair. A few people believed Jonathan still had a chance, if he handled things differently moving forward. At last chance, Dad. Listen, Jonathan, I won't sugarcoat it. You messed up bad. But if you actually want to fix this, you need to back off. Give Rachel time. And when you do reach out, it needs to be an apology with no excuses. No, but Lisa was upset, or I just wanted to be included. Just take full responsibility. Another user had even stronger advice. And not too late. Drop Lisa's influence if you really want a relationship with your daughter. She made this about her ego. Your marriage won't fall apart just because you stand up for Rachel. But your relationship with Rachel? That might be gone forever if you don't start making your own decisions. So what do you guys think? Is Jonathan's relationship with Rachel over for good? Or does he still have a shot at making things right? Let me know in the comments. Jonathan sat in his car outside the wedding venue, gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. The sun was warm, casting golden light across the sprawling vineyard where Rachel's wedding was being held. Guests were arriving, laughter and conversation filling the air as they walked toward the ceremony space. He wasn't supposed to be here. He had told himself he wouldn't come. After Rachel returned his money and officially uninvited him, he had sworn he would respect her wishes. He had even told Lisa they should just let it go, that pushing any further would only make things worse. But deep down, he knew that was a lie. He had to see her, had to see the moment that should have been his. Lisa sat in the passenger seat beside him, scrolling through her phone, uninterested in the event unfolding outside. She had barely spoken to him all morning, still furious that Rachel had cut them off. To her, this was just Rachel being dramatic, throwing a tantrum, trying to punish Jonathan for something that had happened years ago. She'll come around, Lisa muttered, as if reading his thoughts. She's upset now, but one day, she'll realize how unfair she's been. She'll reach out. Jonathan didn't respond. He just stared out the windshield, watching as Rachel stepped out of the bridal suite, her white gown trailing behind her like something out of a dream. She looked beautiful, radiant, and beside her, standing tall in a crisp navy suit, was Mark, her stepfather. The man who had been there for her when Jonathan wasn't. The man who was about to walk his daughter down the aisle. Jonathan felt his throat tighten as he watched Mark offer his arm to Rachel. She took it without hesitation, smiling at him with the kind of warmth Jonathan had once received. But that had been a lifetime ago. Now he was just a stranger. He had imagined this moment so many times, had pictured himself walking her down the aisle, his arm around hers, her eyes full of love and gratitude. He had thought that by paying for part of the wedding, by showing up and trying to be involved, he could somehow reclaim that role in her life. But watching her now, seeing her with Mark, he realized how foolish that had been. Money couldn't buy this. It couldn't erase the years of missed birthdays, the school plays he had skipped, the night she had cried herself to sleep wondering why her father chose another family over her. This moment belonged to Mark because Mark had earned it. Jonathan blinked rapidly, trying to clear the moisture clouding his vision. Lisa sighed beside him, clearly growing impatient. Jonathan, let's go. There's no point in sitting here like this. He finally turned to her, something heavy settling in his chest. Lisa, I think we need to stop pretending this is Rachel's fault. Lisa scoffed. Oh, please. She's been holding a grudge for years. You've tried, Jonathan. You've done everything you can. He shook his head. No, I haven't. Lisa's eyes narrowed. What are you saying? I'm saying, he murmured, voice thick with emotion, that I spent years thinking I could just show up and everything would be fine. That Rachel would just accept me back because I wanted her to. But that's not how it works. I left. I missed everything. And now, I'm paying the price for it. Lisa rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. She'll regret this one day. Jonathan looked at her for a long moment, realization hitting him like a brick. Lisa had never cared about Rachel. Not really. To her, Rachel was an obstacle, a problem that needed to be managed. She had spent years feeding him excuses, convincing him that Rachel was unreasonable, that he had done everything right, that he had been a good father despite all evidence to the contrary. And he had believed her, because believing her meant he didn't have to face the truth. But now, as he watched his daughter, radiant and glowing, walk down the aisle with a man who had actually been there for her, the truth was unavoidable. He had lost her, and maybe he deserved to. Jonathan sat in silence as the ceremony began. He listened to the soft music, the laughter of the guests, the quiet sniffles as Rachel and Daniel exchanged vows. And then, finally, he started the car. As they drove away, Lisa kept talking, but Jonathan barely heard her. His mind was spinning, replaying the moments of his life where he had failed Rachel. The day he moved out, the birthdays he missed, the times he had chosen Lisa's comfort over his daughter's pain. He thought money could fix things, but he learned too late that what Rachel had wanted wasn't money. It wasn't grand gestures or checks with his name on them. She had wanted him to be there when she needed him the most, and he wasn't. Now, there was nothing left to do but accept that he had lost her for good. Wow, this story is a tough one. A father who thought he could rebuild what was lost, only to realize, too late, that some mistakes can't be undone. It's heartbreaking, but it's also a powerful lesson about the consequences of our choices. At the core of this story, there's one undeniable truth. You can't buy forgiveness. Jonathan thought that by paying for a portion of Rachel's wedding, he could earn back his place in her life. But forgiveness isn't something you can purchase, and relationships don't work like business transactions. If you betray someone, you don't get to demand their trust back. Trust is built over time. It's nurtured through presence, consistency, and care. And once it's broken, it's up to the hurt party, not the one who caused the damage, to decide if it can be rebuilt. Rachel made her choice, and Jonathan had to face the fact that he was no longer the father she turned to. That role belonged to someone else. Then there's Lisa. Step-parents should never force stepchildren into roles they don't want. Lisa treated Rachel's wedding as if it were about her own validation, not about Rachel's happiness. She wanted to assert control, to demand space where she wasn't wanted. And in doing so, she pushed Rachel even further away. If Lisa had stepped back, if she had supported Jonathan in actually making amends instead of fueling the fire, maybe, just maybe, things could have turned out differently. But in the end, the real responsibility fell on Jonathan. He made his choices long ago, and now he had to live with them. So now I turn it over to you. What do you think? Did Jonathan deserve this outcome? Could he have done something differently to repair his relationship with Rachel? Or was it already too late from the moment he walked away all those years ago? Let's discuss it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And hey, if you love diving into stories like this, ones filled with drama, real-life lessons, and tough moral choices, make sure to hit that subscribe button. There's plenty more where this came from, and you won't want to miss the next one. Until next time, take care and make good choices. See you in the next story.